This bike is actually getting gear drive cams. I'm gonna go over pros and cons of gear drive cams. This is actually getting the updated Screaming Eagle support plate with the hydraulic tensioners.
No, spin around so I can see.
I'll actually show you all that. That kind of doesn't matter.
Well, I just figured if they wanted to see it, that'd be better.
First off, with gear drive cams, one of the biggest problems with them is that we're gear to gear, there's not any movement, there's no play in there at all. Everything's gotta be perfect. The biggest thing is the flywheel end play, the actual play of the shaft. Can't be any more than 3 thou. 3 thousandths out of round. Any more than that, it's gonna change the gear lash of how the gears mesh. You know, too tight, it's gonna whine. Too loose, it's gonna be noisy, end up chipping teeth. So that's very important. So that's what I have set up right now, is I have the cams in it, the support plate has to be in it, and spin it over with an indicator. This one's actually 2 thou, so it's less than the 3.
If someone was considering gear drive, then probably the first thing they should do would be measure the pinion shaft runout.
Yep.
Because if you go ahead and buy the gears and everything, and then you take your engine apart, and your runout is too excessive for gear drive, but acceptable for the conventional chain drive, you know, you bought something that you may end up having to remove the flywheels or replace it, and that's a much more expensive proposition than you originally thought you were getting into. So if you are considering it, you know, a lot of people, you know, like swear by this or that. You know, the first thing you should do is take the motor apart and measure the pinion.
How often do you find with putting in the gear drive that you find the runout too large?
Harley says it can be up to 10 thou. That's acceptable
For the chain?
for chain drive setup. That 10 thou is acceptable.
And they do have them when they machine,
Yeah.
just put them in the motors, they
Yeah.
are sometimes.
And they can shift a little bit over time from use.
Could you kind of point out how you make the runout measurement on?
Right here is what I have set up.
Oh, okay. You've
I have an
got it
indicator
on.
right on the end of the shaft.
All right, so
Take these off.
actually, what you're measuring is a wobble in the
Yeah,
shaft.
it's basically the
The
runout.
runout of the shaft, and how out of round that shaft is.
So the only correction is actually check out for another crank, or,
There is no way to re-true the crankshaft. You have to replace it.
wow.
These are non-rebuildable. Twin cams are Evos are rebuildable.
Now what's the chances of getting another one that's got too much of a
It's usually pretty good. I mean, this is a brand new flywheel right here, and this is
2000
2000.
or something?
So,
Which
for the
are
most
fine.
part, they're in pretty good condition from the factory. This one you can actually see. It doesn't move a whole lot. You can see the indicator.
Can't see it moving
What
at
are
all.
the advantages,
Tell you
what
the
are the
truth.
advantages to going to a?
Really, the only main advantage of gear drive is that very accurate timing. You know, there's no chain to stretch, there's no chain to move, there's no tensioners. It's just a gear and a gear.
Less time for it to disintegrate.
Yeah, and then tensioners, which we'll go over right here. You know, we went over this a little bit last week. The spring tensioners wear out prematurely. This is actually the hydraulic tensioner. It's just a little plunger and a little spring. That's all it is. It has an oil passage on the back side of it. It gets oil pressure from the motor, from the oil pump. And that keeps steady pressure on the tensioner.
But so you're gonna get very accurate timing, but in the grand scheme of things, right? When you're looking at, valves, opening, closing, overlap,
Yeah.
it's a big, you have a big area to play there with. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can,
I like on the side of like accurate timing on the gear drive, like we were just talking a couple of seconds ago. I've never seen or experienced a problem with the timing going out of whack or anything on the chain drive.
Right.
You know, there's
It's more higher RPM
right, okay,
when everything's moving very fast.
right, yeah.
You have a
Timing
little,
is crucial.
yes.
you were building a race engine that was gonna
Exactly.
be at maximum RPMs at all times, but
Right.
again, like, you really, when you're building an engine, you really gotta be true to yourself and realize where you do ride the thing.
Yeah,
You know, if you got the thing pinned everywhere you go and you're just racing with your friends, that's one thing, but if you got the wife on the back and you're cruising at 2,500 or 4,500 RPMs, the
yeah.
little bit difference isn't gonna be worth
Yeah,
the
right.
big
Bit-
difference in
bit
the
overkill.
cost.
It's way overkill, my opinion, on just about any Harley motor, it's overkill. It's not necessary.
And they,
I think this is the much better
They
setup
are
for
noisy.
reliability,
Oh, yeah, they're
day-to-day,
fine.
the hydraulic tensioners.
is that orange thing the Screaming Eagle plate?
This is the Screaming Eagle support plate.
What does a,
Here's a stock one,
okay, that's just what I was gonna ask.
there's a stock one right there, and that's a Screaming Eagle. See, it's a lot beefier, it's a lot thicker, this is billet. This is just cast. Not so much lighter, it's just beefier, it's just stronger. This is the update to V-style tensioners. It has a